A good indication to me when I go into a club, and I get a lot of calls from clubs who have brand new bikes, it's a month or two in, and their bikes are literally falling apart. And a couple of indicators to me when I walk into a club with relatively new bikes that they've been thrown together can be something as simply as the position or the angle of the saddle. When the bike comes out of a box, typically it's never optimal in terms of angle. The saddle is never, or usually never centered on the rails. The guts, the seat guts underneath the saddle are usually misaligned or over tightened on one end and under tightened on the other. Toe straps will be routed incorrectly. Just the smallest, most subtle details, just smack of a bike that was thrown together as quickly as possible. And you'd think in this day and age that with a bike, with an indoor group cycle, like even the Spinner Series bikes, as good as you make the bike, as good as you engineer the bike, it always comes down to the last person who puts the last screw in the bike before it's ready to use, how that bike's going to work. And when it comes time to perform a repair or make an adjustment, and you have to take a part of the bike apart or you have to turn something to make an adjustment, those areas that were ignored or not lubricated or not adjusted correctly, that's typically when the bike goes into failure mode, because things that are repetitive in motion and incidental, they need to be lubricated, whether it's a resistance knob or it's a pop pin on the bike. You've got many pop pins on the bikes, or adjustment pins to set up the adjustments over and over and over with the different riders. When those areas aren't tight, or they're not adjusted, or they're not lubricated, they tend to work poorly, and it reflects on the image of the bike and the perception of the person riding the bike, what they think of the company who's produced the bike. And for example, the e-spinner, this is an incredible piece of equipment. The e-spinner it has an NXT base. The NXT is the Star Trek's top, that's their top of the line bike. It's aluminum. They use the Spinner Elite flywheel because it has a clutch, which is a great safety mechanism if it's adjusted correctly. And they have a computer touchscreen that, built-in fan, iPod dock, cable television, spinning videos, etc., etc., etc. This bike has so much going on. It's just incredible. But this bike is handled no differently than a standard entry-level commercial bike when it comes to putting it together and putting it on the floor. I've been working on e-spinners in clubs that are 6 to 9 months old, and there are just areas of the bike that are just screaming for maintenance and lubrication and adjustment. And that's not because it's a poor bike. This is a wonderfully designed and built bike. But again, it's pulled out of the box, it's bolted together like an IKEA end table, and this $5,000 piece of equipment, it has the potential to just work horribly. Now on the flip side, if you pull the bike out of the box and everything is lubricated as the bike's assembled, the saddle's adjusted correctly, the pedals are lubricated, toe straps are routed, even things as simple as base hardware being lubricated and levelers being lubricated, and thread barrels of the levelers checked for mobility and chased if they need with the drill with the tap. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. When you have a bike that's commercially designed and it's thrown together dry, no adjustment, no test riding, and even if a person did test ride it, they wouldn't. The people who build these bikes, typically, I see them day in and day out, and it's pretty clear to me that they're not taking classes. They're not riding the bikes, and I won't get into that. But the biggest dynamic to an effective technician, someone building these bikes on a commercial level, is experience, doing it over and over and over and over. When it's the husband or a wife building the bike because the husband's not available, you're going to do what it says in the book to do. Put this piece here, put the screw in the hole and make it tight. One thing that we do at Studio Cycles that no one else does on the planet is when you buy a brand new bike from us, we pull it out of the box, we build it, we tune it, we prep it, we extend the warranty from 3 years to life, we do lifetime free parts replacement, and we're able to do that because we are so comprehensive and in-depth with our approach to assembly, tuning, and preparation of the bikes, that when the bike is put together correctly, 100%, and put into a home setting, it should last a lifetime and parts should not wear out. So, lastly, and I'll close with this in terms of what happens when a new bike is thrown together, is that I'm going to go back to the lubrication and the dealing with hardware and anything mechanical when you're putting the bike together. When you throw a bike together and you don't use grease, you don't use lubrication in the drivetrain, you don't check tension of bottom bracket lock nuts, pop pins, crank bolts, etc. Even so much as the handlebar hardware on the NXT, where you bolt the handlebar base to the tower. When it's time to do a repair and adjustment 2, 3, 4 years down the line and you attempt to move that hardware, it's going to break or it's going to seize and your bike is in full failure mode, which means that full failure mode, say that fast 3 times, full failure mode means your bike is done. Your bike is toast. And if you take it to a bicycle shop, in my experience, they'll probably try to fix it. They may correct the problem, but bicycle shops deal with bicycles. They don't deal with sweat-inundated commercial exercise bikes that have been ignored for years and years and years, or something that's been stripped or broken or over-tightened. And they'll probably take a shot at it, probably generate a bill for you, but wouldn't it be better to get a brand new bike and have it built, tuned, adjusted, prepped to absolute perfection, and have a lifetime warranty on it before you ever put your leg over the seat and ride that bike for the first time? So this has been Indoor Cycling 101, session number 4. What happens when a new bike is thrown together? I'm Jeff Wimmer, and this is StudioCycles.com.